Hello, and thank you for joining the Escrow Certification Training. I'm Lena Gertis. I'm a DRE processor in the Builder Services Department. I've been with Fidelity National Title for more than 20 years and with the industry for over 30. I'm going to provide an overview of the Department of Real Estate as it relates to residential subdivisions and the public report process. So let's go ahead and get started. DRE has certain requirements for when a final public report is required or when the project is exempt. If a project is located within an unincorporated area of the county, regardless of the type of the project, DRE is required. If the project will have a homeowners association where the HOA owns real property or has lien rights, those types of projects also require DRE processing. If a project will consist of vacant lots, whether it's in the city or the county, those subdivisions will need final public reports. So let's talk about when there are DRE exceptions. If it's a commercial project, such as a commercial condo project, as long as all of the units are commercial, the projects are exempt. If a project has less than 4 lots or units, so even if it's in the county, if there are 4 lots or less, the project does not need a public report. So if you have a parcel map creating 4 lots, those types of projects would be exempt. If a project is built by public housing, those types of projects, whether it's offered for lease or for sale, those projects are exempt as well. So if a project is located within the city where all the lots are going to be built with homes and there's no HOA, those projects are exempt. But again, as we mentioned up above, if even one of those lots in a subdivision in the city is sold as vacant, the subdivider forfeits their exemption and a final public report is required. Another thing to consider is that if you have a project where there's one residential condominium and the building itself has 5 units or more, because there's even one residential unit, those projects are not exempt. That happens in San Francisco, where the first floor of the building is all commercial retail restaurants, but there's a residential component up above, and as long as there are 5 or more units, then the whole project is required to have the final public report for that one residential unit. Now let's take a look at the different types of public reports. There are 3 main public reports: the preliminary public report, which is the pink, the conditional, which is referred to as a yellow, and the final, which is referred to as the white. Now the interim public report is really a preliminary public report for projects that already have had a public report issued. So those 2 columns are the same. With a preliminary public report, the owner is allowed to advertise the property and take reservations that are non-binding. Escrow is required to hold those reservations. We don't refer to them as deposits because they're fully refundable. So if you have a customer that's excited to get started on a project and they tell you that they're getting ready to start some site work and they're going to put up a sign or they're going to launch a website, those are indicators that the DRE process should probably get started, because that subdivider would need to have a preliminary public report before they start those types of activities. In order for a builder to take binding contracts and escrow deposits, then they have to have a conditional public report. Escrow has to hold all of the funds, regardless if they have a bond or not, under a conditional public report. And then in order to actually close the escrows, they need a final public report. So the pink and the yellow are not required, but the white report is required in order to get the final public report. And you'll notice that for the common interest subdivisions, we talk about how to get a conditional public report takes 3 to 4 months. And to get the final public report, it can take 4 to 6 months. So on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the process, and then it'll be more clear as to how the timing comes into place. The process to get the public report requires, in most cases, that there's an attorney involved to prepare the management documents. The subdivider is having the civil engineer prepare the map. They're working on getting a purchase agreement, site plans, those types of things. And then there's a budget preparer doing the work to put an HOA budget together. And then if there's a condo plan, there's also an engineer involved with the condo plan. If you're working with a builder that isn't familiar with projects that need to go through DRE, we do have lists of attorneys and budget preparers. We don't recommend them necessarily. We just suggest that they call or contact more than one on the list to get an idea of the timing and the cost involved for their subdivision to help make them aware of the implications of the process they're going through with the state. So once we have all the packages, all the information together for the package and submit it to the Department of Real Estate, it goes through the Central Control Unit, which is the CC unit. They have 10 days to review the package to make sure that everything is included, and 10 days to assign it to an investigator. Once the file is assigned to an investigator, that investigator has 60 days to review the information. At the end of the 60 days, they can issue what's called a deficiency. And so if they issue a deficiency notice, it starts a 30-day cycle where they ask questions, we go back and get the information and submit it. So that's why typically we suggest that builders allow 3 to 4 months to get a conditional and 4 to 6 months to get a final public report. One of the things that I'll note is we prefer to try and get the DRE process up in front of the map process so that while the owner is working on getting the map recorded through the county, we're already in with the Department of Real Estate so that we can get things to a point where we're at a final document notice with the Department of Real Estate waiting for the map to record instead of the reverse where the map is recorded and we're waiting on the Department of Real Estate. So then let's talk a little bit about the group that we need for a kickoff meeting. We suggest that once the map has received tentative approval, that we have a meeting, usually on Teams, bringing the project team together. As escrow, you're definitely part of the process if you want to be on the meeting, or if you would prefer to have us provide a summary for you at the end of the call, we're happy to do that as well. So generally what we're doing with the kickoff meeting is getting everyone acquainted on the project team, knowing who the different principals are that are going to be responsible for reviewing information, signing applications, signing CC&Rs, those types of things. We also want to have the phasing schedule clear and get an idea of what the timing is going to be for the process, such as when they want to be able to start marketing the project, so they need the pink report. If they're going to want to write contracts before the final public report is issued, and they need the conditional report. So those are some of the things that we're going over in the kickoff meeting to start the DRE process. So finally, let's take a look at some of the items that I call the escrow checklist. These are things that the DRE processors will be working with you to assist with for getting the final public reports. First of all, we'll need a prelim that includes the indemnity note. Sometimes we might ask you to open the order, but most likely it will come from the owner, or sometimes their engineer who's working on the map will need a prelim. And so all the parties will need a copy of the prelim once it's available. There are sample buyer escrow instructions that are part of the package for DRE. The DRE processors will prepare those escrow instructions for you in SoftPro and go over that information with you if there are any unusual paragraphs that are required for your particular project. And also, we'll be working with you on bonds that are necessary for DRE. There are two different types of bonds. One is an assessment guarantee, which is 6 months worth of assessments. And the second bond is a common area completion bond. So speaking of common area, let's talk about the common area grant deed. The common area grant deed is recorded with the first closing. And in order to have the first closing and record the common area grant deed, one of two things has to be in place. Either, as I mentioned above, the bond for the common area, or down below where it has the NOCs, the notice of completion. If they're not bonding for completion, then the NOC has to record, which means that you'll also be working with underwriting to make sure that you have an indemnity in place in order to close during the lien period. And then just as a final reminder, the DRE processing department is a resource for you. We're here to help, and we support you through this process. You're always welcome to contact myself, Lena, Sheila, or Tracy, and ask any question that you might have, or if any of your customers have questions, you're welcome to contact us or have your customer contact us directly. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your training.